Yeah, sorry
Thank you.
about what?
No, good job. Good job getting the password so quick. That was good of you.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I'm sorry. Still like getting used to like actually working Zoom. Like I've joined a bunch of them, but
Yeah.
when I got around to like creating the meeting, I was like, oh shit, I've like never done this before.
Yeah, I
What
hear
am I
you.
doing?
I haven't done one myself. I've joined them, but I haven't started one yet.
I know, yeah, I've done so many, so I was like, I have so much experience with this, and then there's like all these like it's like join, create meeting. I was like, wait, what am I supposed to do?
And they were hitting me with some captchas that were kind of like annoying with pick the fire hydrants. And I was like, oh, I picked it right. Why are you making me do it again?
I know, yeah, I'm not a robot.
I was proving I wasn't a robot.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this is awesome. Thank you for asking to chat. And
Oh,
very cool of you.
yeah, for sure. That was like our first assignment, and you were just like the first person I thought of because
Uh-huh.
um, yeah, I think your career especially sort of fits with some of the stuff that we've been talking about with like having uh, like I don't know how hard it is to like find entry level jobs like as a director, but different
Yeah.
ways you can like work in the industry and then still continue to do stuff on the side. And the book
Right.
sort of emphasized that too and talked about I think how it's a lot harder than you think it is to like just keep going along and making stuff. And I think that's something that really impresses me, especially about your career, is that you've been making these movies with Matt since like the late '90s.
Right.
But then you also did some of that like visual effects work in like the mid.
Right. Sure. Yeah. You can ask me whatever you want.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of just what I wanted to start off by talking about is your work like professionally in the industry,
Hmm.
some of that visual effects stuff. It's a really interesting list of credits on it.
Yeah.
It's like Live Free or Die Hard, and then like a bunch of those Fred movies, which
Yeah.
I'm sure Farley likes because I've seen him tweet about that
I
before.
know, and dude, that's unrelated to my working on it. He asked me, "Hey, have you seen Fred?" I'm like, "Dude, I worked on everything. I worked on not only every part of the trilogy, I worked on every episode of his TV show, and I have a cameo in one of the episodes of the TV show. So
Really?
yes, I know Fred. Yeah.
You know Fred?
Well, I know I didn't meet Fred, but I know his work because I worked on all of it. But visual effects wise, not writing or directing or anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was an episode where I was compositing some footage onto a TV. Fred's mom was watching a cage match, fighters like martial arts fighters,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Well, what do you guys want me to composite on there?" And like, "Well, we don't have anything. We didn't film anything." Like, okay, so I asked my buddy Akuo, who I worked with. He knew some martial arts. I was
Mhm.
like, all right, you and I are going to go outside and like stage a quick fight, and then we're going to composite it on the TV. And we went against the chain link fence, and he like pushed me against the chain link fence. It's small on the screen, but it was funny. So we were out there, cars were driving by. I had no shirt on. This dude's pushing me against the fence like we were in an MMA match.
That's awesome. So you were like
Yeah.
doing martial arts.
Yeah, yeah. The guy that I worked for, he went to Iowa,
Oh,
Dave
cool.
Payne.
Really? I'm gonna.
So yeah, so he's a good writer. He can do everything, writer,
Mhm.
director, and he ran his own post company. So I think when you ask me about how varied my career was, it's mostly because of working with Dave, who worked for Roger Corman.
Oh, really? Nice.
So in the '90s, just shortly out of he had I forget what year Dave graduated, but in the '90s when they were still making direct to video movies, Dave got an entry level job with Corman, working like craft service, I think, working the food table.
Hmm.
And then he kept saying that, hey, you should give me a crack at something. I could do more. He sort of proved himself doing the jobs he was given. And then he got to direct some of those direct to video movies from back in the day,
Hmm.
and met a whole bunch of people there who he continued to work with years and years and years to this day still. And they ended up doing all sorts of things. So some of them are working in kids shows on Nickelodeon. We worked on those. some of them were working in horror movies, so we worked on those. It was kind of like whatever came along at his small company, which he ran with another guy named Danny Braun. And I worked with those guys for years. So it would be from, like I said, it could be Nickelodeon, it could be a slasher movie, it could be something for the Disney Channel. I don't know, all sorts of stuff. A few things on there I worked on not through those guys, so that even varies it more. But once you know people and once you can do stuff and you've sort of proven yourself, yeah, they'll ask you to do it, especially if it's grunt work. When I first started working with Dave, it was the overnight shift of cutting in sound effects for one of his movies.
Nice. Yeah, that's actually
so the
something.
editor went home. Yeah, the editor went home. He left the computer on. I came in at like 11 p.m. and just like, all right, here's the scene. Put in this, and try to find some good sounds for that. And then I would, when the sun was like coming up, I would roll home and go to sleep.
Yeah. That's funny. I actually just read something about that for class about how people apparently the person who wrote the book said that everybody tells him that they are going to try to have like dual careers in like both recording sound and editing sound, but how that's kind of impossible if you're doing it on the same movie, because they like record all of the sound like during the day during the shoot, and then you like have to be up all night.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So did you start out working with Dave? I was just wondering like kind of how that
pretty much
time period wise compared to like the Paperboy and some of the earlier did.
Well, when I was at Providence College, I was doing liberal arts stuff, so I was doing a lot of all sorts of writing and also some business studies. So I was studying the industry. I was really studying distribution because I was into like movie stores and horror distribution, and I was kind of into the B movies more than the A movies from the start. And so that was in the 90s. I graduated in 99. Farley was in 2000. So we were making the Paperboy around then and other movies prior. I also worked in the editing room at school. So people could come in and I could teach them very quickly how to do some linear editing. I helped some teachers with stuff. Teachers needed to like, I got to do a presentation. I don't have time to learn all this. Can you put this clip and this clip together? I did that kind of thing. Also at Providence, there's kind of a tradition of being proud of the Farrelly brothers for their success since Peter Farrelly went there. So the first movie I worked on was an adaptation of one of Peter Farrelly's novels. It was called Outside Providence. Nice. So I was, I guess, 18 or 19 at that time. That was the first set that I got to work on as an intern. So that was cool. That was my first exposure to like a big project, and I worked in the props department as an intern. They gave me a cameo too. I got to be student in the bathroom.
Nice.
Shaving. I was like shaving at a mirror in like this fake prep school bathroom. That was very cool. Learning a lot of stuff, in my film history class is really there. Working in the editing, and then when I met Farley, we liked most all the same stuff. It was very easy to collaborate, and also we kept pushing each other to keep producing stuff. Like, what's the next movie? We were doing movies where I had to do one per semester maybe, and we would do like 5 that semester. Not that they were big budget or anything, but we didn't want to like rest easy, and we wanted to keep challenging ourselves, probably with more ideas than production value. And maybe more like funny writing than high production value, but that's always been the way we've sort of done things. And I grew up making movies very frugally, so that makes me happy. I wouldn't know what to do if there were a million. I wouldn't feel that comfortable if so much money was being spent.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking is like, I feel like most people would ideally like to have it that they're like able to make as much money like on the stuff that they're doing on the side, but I feel like
Right.
the movies that you guys make are just like so like perfect the way they are. That's like their whole identity. It's like it would be cool if you had a bit more money because you could probably do more movies, but it's like I wouldn't want to see anybody other than like McGee and Millhouse
Yeah,
films.
yeah. It would sort of be a contradiction in terms to
Mm-hmm.
make a little ragtag movie with a big budget. You'd be like, wow, it just looks too expensive, you
Yeah.
know? So that we sort of try to make it work for us. But we're writing because we have this group of actors that we use most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
We're writing for those people, so we don't have to hunt down someone who we're not going to be able to get,
Mm-hmm.
and we aren't writing locations we don't have. So that's to the point of when you said how it's hard to keep doing stuff, working with what we have. That's an old, almost a cliche of movie making, but it's true. It's
Yeah.
true.
I mean, my mind was blown when I like found out. I think it kind of changes as the further in your filmography, but the fact that like all of the McGee stuff is like just filmed at his house, like
Yeah.
in the same like location. I think like except for some of the stuff in Riverbeast, but I think I heard even that's like in his backyard. Like yeah.
Yeah, he almost never left his house. Once or twice, but almost never. And even then, we would try to just keep him not for more than like an hour or two. So we'd be shooting pages and pages of stuff, and it's
Mhm.
just like we don't want to bother him. But what Farley and I were doing, he's especially probably good at this, but because I sometimes want to get a few more angles, and he wants to say, let's just get it done.
Mhm.
So we meet in the middle. But by not getting McGee or the other actors ticked off at us, they'll come back again, you know.
Mhm.
And we say we'll come to your house at 9 a.m. and we'll be gone by 11 or 12. It won't be too bad. You don't have to drive anywhere. We're not gonna like, invade you for the whole day. And then they're like, okay, you know. So when we do the next one, they'll be like, that wasn't too bad. So that way we don't reach that movie where everyone gets mad at us, then we don't make any more.
Yeah, no, it's good to be like. I mean, you hear all those stories about like all the big directors who are like so pushy, like towards the actor,
Yeah,
get it like
yeah,
exactly the way they want, but it's like, yeah, I don't know, because I've heard a lot of stuff too. Like I know, I think I heard that like Sharon doesn't work after like a certain time. Too.
yeah, yeah.
But by,
After four or so.
yeah, and like
Yeah.
by respecting that though, you just have these actors who you can just like keep working with.
Yeah, yeah, she knows there's an end in sight, and she's, all the better for it. She's every take is fantastic, and then
Hmm.
she's like, I want to go home, and she's like a star in our world, so we have to
Yeah.
respect that, like you said.
I had something else. Oh yeah. Also, just the way that I think you were talking about just creating like 5 projects or whatever a semester. It's like I like how that. Also, I feel like that mentality hasn't really gone anywhere because like right before I got on, I saw that tweet from Farley where he like talked about like
Yeah,
5 upcoming projects.
yeah,
Sure.
we wrote a couple pages this morning, so it's crazy. I mean, I've known Farley since '97 or so, and I talk to him multiple times every week. Not every day, but almost every day.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's cool. I mean, one of the things we can do with our movies, because I talk to him so much, is think about them for a long time.
Hmm.
We do not have the pressure that a lot of Hollywood people are. We're like, okay, we're filming in a month. Like I read that about one of the Transformers sequel.
Hmm.
The two guys who are good writers, but they told them, we're putting you up in a hotel. Don't come out until like a week later with a script. It was something like that. And I thought, oh my God, that's so hard, because for us, sometimes like when we were doing Riverbeast, I couldn't think about how the beast was gonna die. Maybe not to give spoilers, but that didn't pop into my mind until maybe like we've been talking about the project for 5 or 6 months.
Hmm.
Like the pieces were turning in the back of our minds, and then it's just take up the phone, text Farley, here's what's gonna happen. Or he'll be like, well, what about that? And then what about this? And then we do that all the time.
Hmm.
So being able to work with people, and talk to all the time. It lets you brainstorm like constantly. And Farley's. We came up with the idea for the evil spot, and then there was the magic spot, and there's like all these things that just are permutations of these ideas. And Metal Detector Maniac right now, there's stuff that's gonna be sort of a callback to that too. So I haven't even finished that one yet, but
yeah, what was it? 85% shot.
yeah,
You said.
yeah. We had to shut down for now, but I'm still keeping busy. There's still a certain amount of posts that I can kind of really dial in and get as good as I can.
Yeah, did you film some of that at the extravaganza last year then?
Yeah.
And I don't know, are you going to film any more this year, or probably not, just because I know that it's changed a lot. I was just going to talk about it on the podcast. But
yes. Yeah, there won't be anything for Metal Detector, but for another project, I'll be there with a camera. Yeah.
Oh,
if you believe it. I mean, I guess you can believe it, but yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it sounds like it's still going to be a pretty solid extravaganza, like all things considered.
Yeah,
like,
I think so. And it's different too, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of fun in a way.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I think he said like a campfire and like outside an apple orchard. Like that sounds like a great thing. So
it'll be very New Englandy, and the fact that it's at a different location will make it, for people sharing pictures and stuff. It won't.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be that year at that place, and it's sort of part of history too, because we're, Farley is rolling with the punches of what's happening, and you just got to do your best. You just got to do your best, and that's what he's doing.
I think maybe to go back to some of the other stuff, like the more some of the more industry stuff. You already kind of touched on this when you were like talking about David, but I was just wondering like what led you to those jobs, and kind of like what kind of work did you do, and just like overall, like in general, like kind of what were your experiences, good and bad? Oh, did it cut out or something? Did it cut out there?
It's been hanging up a little bit. I think it came back. Okay.
Yeah.
What led me to those jobs? I was always driven to finish projects, even when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And that led me to get into editing, because I knew people who would sometimes shoot stuff, end up with tapes in their drawer, or they would just tape over something because they never got around to editing it, and that would drive me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So I got into editing, and then working in editing in college led me to start learning all the Final Cut and like nonlinear stuff. So when Dave had job postings, I was seeing a lot of job postings for post work. It's something that you could get, I think, without too many connections, because it is sort of grunt work. It's not glamorous,
Mm-hmm.
Even being on set as a PA, like on a studio thing, is probably considered more glamorous, because they're giving you nice food. You're maybe around the actors and the talent and stuff, versus being in a dark room by yourself,
Mm-hmm.
So because I was this person who could just sit down at a computer and finish things, that's how I started working with Dave and learning Final Cut, and learning new stuff from Danny, the co-owner of their company, which was called The Institution, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I got into visual effects, and just the focus that it takes to like hone and edit and kind of like have an eye for visual detail is not exactly the same, but it's similar in VFX. You can't be lazy if you're rotoscoping things, and you can really, when you're compositing stuff, there's a million little touches that you do, and I sort of gravitated toward that. I like the losing yourself in a shot and focusing on it, even when it has nothing to do with my writing or my movies. If somebody needs help on their movie, I can flip the switch and go in and just focus on that. So I was used too. It was hung up for a second, but I think it's back now.
Yeah.
Did I come across okay?
I think I lost like the second part there because it did.
Okay. Well, yeah. So what I was just saying was, focusing on finishing a project and focusing on the visual details that I was doing in editing, it carried over to VFX, and it turned out that there was a lot of work for that. There was work for fixing things for people. There was work for not just the traditional green screen effects, removing logos, all the really practical nitty gritty stuff. It's really hand in hand with editing now. Sometimes editors are told, hey, fix that up in the timeline even before you show it to anybody, because the producers can't like wrap their head around something that doesn't look a little closer to the finished thing.
Yeah.
So sometimes the skills that you do to really quickly mask something in or composite it in an edit, you just got to take it to the next level of quality when you're doing it for the finished shot. And some of the tools are the same. If you're comfortable in Premiere, then maybe some of that's going to translate to After Effects, and if you already know Photoshop, so those skills are useful to people. I definitely say knowing all those.
Yeah, that's kind of was going to be my next question, just because I feel like so some of kind of like you said, like some of that stuff is like kind of blurred, like what is actually editing now. Because I think I have kind of an old-timey definition, thinking of it as just like cutting and like arranging shots and stuff. But yeah, it's interesting that it now has some of that visual effects work, like masking things and green screen. That's also kind of what I was wondering, because I think of like rotoscoping. When I think of that, I think of it in terms of like animation. But is that like closer?
Yeah, because you can fix it. Right, because you can fix it, they want to see it fixed. A lot of times.
Yeah.
So yeah, and people have gotten used to that. But effects are cool. There's a lot of stuff that pops up. Some movie could have 10 things that need to get fixed. Movie could have a couple hundred shots. It's just the projects that we would work on, people would say, hey, can you do this? What's your bid? And they would figure it out and rally a team together and get whatever shots the client needed. But it's cool. And there's also filming involved in those too. We would have to sometimes shoot a miniature element, I think a little tiny like spark of fire, or not everything was just in the computer or when people think of CG. I worked on Super Ninjas for Nickelodeon, and that show had a few big miniatures in there. And there were there's practical fire, there's practical sparks and things that they filmed on the stage. And, a lot of times people just call it CG, but no, there was some old school stuff in there.
Yeah.
So that's another good, everything keeps merging, kind of like you're saying. And those guys, when they film it, they have to think about how it's going to be composited.
Yeah, I find that kind of like merging of elements too, just like saying it's all CG, but it's actually like this sort of amorphous like blend of all of it. I find that really fascinating. And, some of that work too is kind of like what you were saying about Fred too, like going out and recording the or whatever.
Yeah, we had to do stuff like that. And sometimes it's due in a day or two. So, I mean, what are you going to do? They don't have it, there's no more budget for it. And a lot of times that's how stock footage gets used too, because if they don't have we need a shot of a beautiful island with a pristine beach, and then the guy's like, oh, we didn't film that, so they Pond 5 Shutterstock, they grab something and send it to you, that in a pinch that stuff would get composited sometimes.
Yeah, it's random, but that just made me think of that. Just with all the talk of inserts and stuff, made me think of that funny bit in Druid Gladiator Clone when they're like looking over and they say the beautiful view or whatever, and it's like just that sort of the viewer.
So much concrete, a little bit of water.
Yeah. I love that so much.
Yeah, but that, in all honesty, how humble that town is and how modest it is there, that is the view. It's not like not like we faked it. I mean, that was turning the camera that way on that day, but to have like a romantic scene next to that old industrial plant, It's pretty funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, and I just love how unique and like organic that kind of feels.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing you won't see that town in other movies. So I think with our stuff, it's fun to film in a little town like that and say, hey, for somebody who gets to watch it, not only are they getting our story, but they're getting like a travelogue of small America somewhere, and they get to see our houses, and they get to see our dogs, and they get to see my family or Farley's family or whatever, So that's kind of fun too. Yeah, we are not faking any of that.
Yeah.
You never could afford it. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's what I really love about those movies too, and I'd like to. That's why I still really want to try to get Freaky Farley in some capacity, like Scream.
Yeah.
Talking about doing like a, of course, with all like online stuff, but like a sort of virtual movie festival, and I'm trying to get like put Freaky Farley in there, because our theater too, the guy who he has like the main projectionist, he always does this like Grindhouse series on Wednesday nights where he just plays like, all sorts of stuff like old horror movies or kind of exploitation films. It feels a lot like the kind of stuff that they would talk about like on Important Cinema Club. It's just like you see all so that there a lot of stuff that they cover, but he also plays like a lot of smaller horror films too, like the kind of stuff that you just like would never like heard of. Really small DIY filmmakers. So I've been trying to be like, you got to get these films. These are like the kind of thing that you play, but like the best version. So.
I love that. And if the guy likes Grindhouse or something, being able to see Freaky Farley shot on film, it kind of like freaks your brain out because you're like, whoa, what year is this again? Because there's a lot of woods, and we tried to keep everything kind of neutral in terms of technology and outfits. But then it's also shot on a 1970s camera with a 1970s lens. So it kind of has this timelessness. You can't pin it down. You can't really say, oh, that movie's so 2007 or something,
That's how I felt watching it, because I think I had seen Riverbeast and Local Legends before it. And those ones do feel a lot more digital and feel a lot more modern. They still are. I think that's what I like about all of them. They still are like pretty timeless, but just like in the way it looks with like the digital photography and everything, they look so much more modern. And then there's like a strange disconnect, like seeing all of the same people, and it's like, oh, this movie looks like it was shot in like 1978 or something.
You see your friend over there?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I was waiting to bring the Riverbeast stuff.
I have to display him somehow, but he's hanging in there. It's not too bad. I fear the latex is gonna decay one day, but he's been through a lot, being in the lake and through a lot of battles, but he's hanging in there.
In the Christmas special.
The Christmas, we danced around.
Yeah, I was really wanting to hike over for the extravaganza, but I think even just aside from all the other craziness, I just don't know if I'm going to be able to this year, but I'd definitely like to come up. I've just been blasting Farley music and telling all my friends to watch movies. I'm like, somebody come up.
That's awesome.
My brother's like the one other convert I have. He's seen all of them too, and
sweet.
Yeah. Sweet. I just everything I've like heard about the extravaganza from like old podcasts and some of the footage I've seen, it just seems like so much fun. Plus it'd be great to see all of y'all in person, but also some of the other people who come there too, like Justin and Peter.
It's a wonderful way to meet people that you might have only talked to online or something, and Farley breaks it down so that there's a chance to talk too, because I think sometimes if you go to a film festival or a concert with people, there's so much time devoted to being quiet while the performers are performing, or you talk for 5 minutes and like, oh, the screening starts, you go sit down for an hour and a half and you're in a dark room, you can't talk. But here it's like, he does a few songs and then he's like, all right, pizza break, and then you can chat for like half an hour, 20 minutes or something, and it's cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
No, I mean, that sounds like the perfect kind of live performance for me, because I like that kind of being able to have the break and talk instead of just like, I don't know, sitting there either in silence or just like everybody's just screaming and you almost can't even like hear.
Yep.
Whatever.
You're right. And Peter is such a good guy. He came to our walking tour that we did in Manchester. The only 3 people came, but he was one, and he brought along one of his friends. So they showed up, met us at like an assigned spot, and we showed them all the Druid and Freaky and Manch Vegas filming locations over like a 3-hour tour, walking tour. It was really wacky and fun.
Yeah, Peter seems like a great guy. I know him through kind of your stuff, and he's been on some of the important cinema club things.
Yeah, very nice guy and a good supporter of all sorts of films. These Canadian guys are so nice.
Yeah.
And so knowledgeable about movies.
Yeah. Has Peter ever gotten any of your films screened? I know he was trying to.
Yeah, he helped us with during the Spectacle Theater in Brooklyn. Was showing it was virtual during
I watched
pandemic.
all those. Yeah.
So that was amazing. That was we were making the Druid movies mostly, in a way, a couple of them were just for our own fun. I never even really thought anyone would necessarily watch them.
Yeah.
So all these years later, to be watching it with a group sitting down watching Sammy, taking the time out of their day to watch something we made for like $60.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
No, that was great. I love that. That was like appointment viewing for me and my brother, like every night. We'd watch all those.
Thank you.
We had our popcorn. It was so much fun. That was like one of the best things I've done, especially like for virtual stuff. Because that's my thing is like as a student programmer, I'm trying to organize some of those events. And I just thought those were like, because I have my kind of reservations about some of the virtual screenings, but I thought that was just perfect, especially because, I mean, those movies like so a lot of them are just on YouTube, but to like see them presented in that way. And also was with the running commentary too. Yeah. So much fun. Just hearing
it flew by.
It
flew by, I thought.
Yeah. I
know.
Farley,
It felt like 25 minutes because I'm half watching the movie and half trying to type in. And I'm kind of an old school person in all honesty. And I'm not good at chatting or knowing that language. I write like complete sentences. I'm such like a dork. But I'm like, I don't know what this acronym is. I don't know if that person's really asking me a question. I'm like,
yeah, I'm kind of the same way. It was hard because for the first couple of events, it's like I had to close the chat because it's like for me really hard. It's like if I really want to watch this, it's like I think some of those, I think especially like Freaky Farley, like I don't think I had watched it before that, and I was like had it open for the first one, but I was like I want to like actually like I really want to hear all this, but it's like I can kind of only pay attention to one, and I'm that same way too. Everybody old-fashioned in like I write complete sentences and like punctuate and capitalize my messages, and all my friends just send me stuff with like nothing's capitalized. There's like no and they're like,
you have big style, man.
Yeah, they're like it's so they're like it's so weird that you don't do any of that. It's just like I don't know why I wouldn't. It's just
yes, that's why we like some of the same stuff maybe. But that was a good test for these virtual screenings, which are still, as this has gotten dragged out, it's become the whole industry is changing, and that was, it's going to be more and more things. So
I was just thinking about that this morning too. It's just weird the way like movies are like released now and like thrown out into the world. It's like, with like the Bill and Ted thing came out, and I looked it up, and they had like the numbers set aside for, like box office, and then they had it like set aside for like VOD, and I was just like, that's so strange.
I know, it's a weird thing, and does it ever feel like it got a release date? And is your internal review of the movie or your memory of the movie marred in a way, or sort of muddied by the fact that you're remembering the circumstances more than the comedy and the heart of the film? I really want to see that movie too. So yes, that is kind of sad. But we learn something during these spectacle screenings, I think, and having it be an appointment, like you said, I think is really important, because if it's just sitting there on YouTube and there's no time factor and there's no community factor, anyone could watch it at any time and they probably end up not watching it.
Yeah.
But if you say 9 o'clock on Friday, we're all watching it as a group, I mean, that gets people, to the screen, and that's going to be more of a thing. And now that the Amazon has the watch party, I feel like maybe that'll be a thing. The Scener that Netflix is working with, maybe doing a virtual screening and having a guest, going virtually, that's going to be more of a thing. So, and for us, because all of our movies are pretty much considered family friendly, I feel like it really helps, because we don't have to worry that the people who program it are going to have people offended in their crowd, or it's going to you're just going to see people click off it or go away when something happens that's really painful or traumatic. Because Farley and I make these in our minds, we're thinking, okay, we're sitting there with all of our friends and family, and there's some kids there, so that's our people. That's who we're making it for. We're not making it for ourselves and for our families. So it's just the way it's developed, but it's turned out to be kind of useful. And when Riverbeast got distributed to China and some other countries with more strict censorship and stuff, we didn't have to change anything. So that was nice.
Yeah. No, I like that aspect of it too. Also, just because I can I mean, it's good too, because it's I think that's just the kind of movie that it's good to be playing right now. Because I was having that conversation with my brother about how it's I've heard way more about the reactions to the Bill and Ted movie than something like Tenet, which I know that the circumstances, that's also what's interesting of the release is really different, but it's just I don't know. I don't like to speak for everybody, but I think that those more family friendly good.
Oh yeah. Well, some stuff that's really harrowing is sometimes tough. We were watching 2 nights ago. My wife and I were watching The Road Warrior on Blu-ray, and she had never seen it before. And she's pretty tough. She's a good film fan, but it was so darn harrowing at some parts. I was like, let's just pause it for now. We'll come back to it. Yeah. But we had watched Mad Max early, a week before, and then we're following it up with this one. And I was like, wow, this is a lot right now. This is a lot. It's a beautiful film, but it's a lot. So we end up watching more comfortable stuff, honestly. Yeah, no,
I agree. That movie I love, and it just flies by every time I watch it, but I sometimes forget how harrowing it actually is. So it's oh, I'm going to put this on. This will be fun. And then right from the opening credits, that montage with all the footage, it's
oh, it's unbelievable. Well, yeah, we were up to the part where the feral kid has the razor boomerang, and the guy gets his fingers cut, and it was just so much. And the other guy got the the pink, the guy with the mohawk, his buddy gets the thing in the head. You're like, okay, I gotta take a break.
Yeah, I love that movie so much. I know everybody likes the new one, and I like it too, but I just like the second one so much because it's that kind of perfect balance between they've figured out the world a little bit more than the first one, but it also feels really kind of DIY and more kind of offbeat, and
it's it's so artistic, but it's also so actiony, and there's not a false moment that feels not of that world. It's a wonderful thing. My wife was surprised to see Mad Max and see that there was still a functioning police department, a sort of functioning police department, and people living in regular homes, cooking dinner and stuff. She thought it was all post-apocalypse, because that's what colors, I think, everyone's idea of what Mad Max is.
Yeah, that's what I think is interesting. I've not returned to it as much, but that's what I think is interesting about the first one, is how it's such a weird in between, how it takes so long for him to actually become Mad Max, and how there is this still functioning world. It also it looks like the 70s too, kind of. It's more bound to the period, whereas you said, the second one just looks post-apocalyptic. It looks like a completely different reality.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't look as 70s, and it doesn't really even look that necessarily much 80s. I mean, just having everything is sand and rocks and leather outfits.
and I what I love about that too is the way that it comes from, especially Road Warriors, like kind of inspired by those Sergio Leone like westerns, which are kind of in turn like inspired by some of the Kurosawa movies, which also are kind of taking from John Ford. I just like love the like whole cycle.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
There, how you can just like trace it back so far.
Yeah, across so many different countries. You know, respect for
Yeah.
all those different countries. Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
I like some of those Australian movies have this quirkiness, especially Bad Taste, of course. But there's like this quirkiness in there that is refreshing when you don't watch that much of it. Some of the Brian Trenchard Smiths, Escape 2000, Turkey Shoot, or even BMX Bandits, you know, which I'm a big fan of. That in terms of being a kids movie.
Yeah.
You're a fan of that?
I actually haven't seen it, but we screened it at our theater a couple of years ago. And
okay.
I think that the director didn't come, but I was just talking to our head projectionist and he said, I can't remember the exact circumstances, but for some reason he was like on the phone with him before.
He's a nice guy, I think.
Yeah. I don't know if you've been keeping up with this, but there's a, they're called, 36 Cinema has been doing some pretty cool online events, and they screened one of his movies, The Man from Hong Kong, about a month ago maybe, and it had running commentary from him the whole time. And I think that's because they've been doing that before. They've done it with like the first couple had the RZA from Wu-Tang, and they were playing movies he was inspired by, which was really interesting. But I liked hearing it directly from Brian Trenchard Smith, the director, and he's a really nice guy, and he just has like so many anecdotes and stories. It's kind of in a way like on those spectacle ones, and it's something that I wasn't even expecting too, because it's just this movie I've never heard of, and there's this like whole history behind it that was really
Have you seen Stunt Rock yet?
I haven't. No.
Well, that's a little bit like Man from Hong Kong, which is known for its stunts, right? So Stunt Rock, I heard him say that he was inspired by thinking how people like stunts and how people like rock. And he was like, we're putting them together. So he got this rock band that dresses up in like sort of fantasy garb and a real stunt man. And then he has them meet up in LA and then just does a whole bunch of stunts and a whole bunch of rock together. And it is like one of the most fun movies I've ever seen. I did see it in the theater in LA at, I think maybe it was at New Beverly, but
oh, nice.
Awesome. Very, very, I think Tarantino always gives that guy props, right? And he does stuff with Joe Dante's Trailers from Hell. Knows a ton about movies and super skilled.
I'm gonna have to check that out. That sounds just like the best movie ever. I was like, how have I not seen this before?
Oh yeah, it's a crowd pleaser, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to show that to some of my friends. That sounds great.
Yeah, it really is a crowd pleaser. There's so much to it that you just like, whoa, it flies by.
Yeah. No, I haven't. I need to like. That's kind of what I thought after that screening, because I wasn't particularly familiar with his work, but I was like, I think I need to go check some of these out. I mean, BMX Bandits had been on my radar, but
yeah. My wife and I were BMX Bandits for Halloween a few years ago,
nice.
so I have a like a jersey. She has the Nicole Kidman one, and I've got the blue one. I got them from some guy in Australia.
Nice.
So I wear it around sometimes. It's only like once or twice has anybody been like, yeah, BMX Bandits, man. But mostly no one knows.
That's what we like played it as part of our like children's or family series. I think, if I remember correctly. I think that was the context that we had it in. Yeah.
Nice.
Somebody told me that my dad went, but I have zero memory of it. So I don't, maybe he's seen it, but I've never, Seems like a good one though. I'm just trying to see if I had anything else. No.
Well, do you have any questions about how, like, I didn't mention it now, but we've sort of been transitioning into like self-distributing on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That stuff too. I remember, I can't remember if you touched on some of that, but I think I remember hearing about it in a little bit in like that podcast with Justin that you guys did.
Yeah. So I think that's going to continue even more. with Metal Detector Maniac because it costs a little too much to make the discs.
Yeah.
You know, we traditionally on the other movies we might make like 500 DVDs or something when we finished it, and then some would sell on Farley's website, some we would sell at the premiere, some we would. I think it got hung up. Are we back?
Yeah, it's back.
Okay, sweet. So yeah, so you know now we started looking into that, which it makes it easy for people to see it, and it doesn't cost us anything up front, and you know you get a little bit of royalties. It hasn't reached a point where it's really making a lot yet, but it sort of has potential.
Yeah. No.
So that's interesting. You know, it's not hard to get it up there. It's hard to get eyes on it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking is like how like the advantages and disadvantages of both means, because I was thinking like, oh, maybe there's like more of a chance that like people will watch it if you put it out there instead of like leaving the DVD wherever. But it's like, I don't know, I feel like you're still just kind of throwing it out there either way, and you don't know like that what's going to happen either way, because it's like with that Freaky Farley that ended up in the library in wherever.
Texas?
Yeah, in Texas. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Yeah, they both have their pros and cons. You're totally right. The one thing that Farley and I talked about with DVDs, though, is sometimes people will come back to it a few years later because it sits on a shelf as a physical object. Where if it pops across their radar that that's something they should watch on Prime, then they don't do it right away, unless they're really diligent people who make notes in journals, or maybe can like go back and search their email if they send themselves an email, or add it to their queue right away. They might, you know, never return to it. Where
Yeah.
if it's the physical object, they might like it. But in all honesty, we kind of don't have a choice anymore because it's a little too expensive, and we know a lot of people who don't even have players anymore, and the money would probably be just as well spent to put it on Prime and buy an ad or do some buy T-shirts and give them out or something, you know.
Yeah, that's why it's good though.
Yeah.
Somebody like Justin comes in and then wants to do the DVD release of it, and then you can still like kind of distribute it like on Prime and stuff. But
yeah, I mean I always tell people that's make stuff that you like, because you're gonna have to live with it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't get to make that many movies in your life. So we made Freaky Farley. It comes out in 2007. Maybe this October it's going to come out on VHS finally through Justin.
Mm-hmm.
So all those years later, it's kind of still the gift that keeps on giving, because even if we're not making a lot of money, there's still fun things happening in our life because of it.
Yeah, I think also just to go on about that, I think the VHS would be so cool because it's like I don't know how many people are the same way. It's just like me and my best friend, but we like love watching stuff on tape. It's like I still have a bunch of tapes. It's like I know I always bring it up to like some of my, you know, film school buddies, and they're like, you know, why would you do that? It's like the image is so bad, but it's like I don't know, just something about it, like something about like the warmth, and especially on something like Freaky Farley that was originally done on film. It's like I think that.
I know. Yes, there's something about it, man. I'll tell you. If you're watching something cheap, watching it in the cheap manner. I mean, it was intended to be watched that way. No. So you're not going against the filmmaker at all, because they knew in the 80s that they weren't going to be in the theaters.
Yeah.
Cheap one.
That's my favorite thing to watch on tape is like a super niche thing, but it's like I love watching 80s and 70s and 80s episodes of Doctor Who, which are light movies, and were similarly created with like kind of really low budget. They were shot on video, and they were just kind of seen. I don't think it's not that there's like no passion in it, but it's just like I think at the time it wasn't as huge, so they were just like, we're just making this, and then it's like kind of disposable. Like that's why a lot of them were kind of wiped back in the day. But it's like, yeah, that's exactly what you're saying. You know, like this was made so cheap on like such a low budget. It's like it's perfect to watch it on video.
Yeah,
I feel like that's the way it's meant to be seen, and it's the same with all of those old movies too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They were just busting it out. So it'll be funny to see if that happens. I hope it does. And, you know, he's supposed to do Riverbeast on Blu-ray, so it's never been released on Bluray before. So this October will be in theory, he's supposed to put out Riverbeast Blu-ray with some new commentary and.
I have the old disc. I think I got it on like eBay or something.
Okay.
The one with the
red cover.
Yes, the
with
red
the little
cover.
sticker. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I love that one so much. And I think I got Slingshot Cops recently because he tossed that in when I ordered the record.
Good.
But yeah, that'll be neat.
We thought when we put out Riverbeast how hilarious it would be if a real company put out a horror movie for the horror crowd using the word indecorous on the title, like on the box. Like it's the most like not exciting and least money making kind of word you could use in horror or action movie.
Yeah. Have you heard there's like an old podcast where like Matt is playing a clip? It's like from the How Did This Get Made podcast because he like sent a box of a bunch of Riverbeasts and Slingshot.
Oh yeah.
It's the guy like opening it and he just sounds so confused. He's like reading the description and he comes across like that word or something. He's like,
he didn't get it.
Yeah, he's like, not for the nervous. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's such an elaborate, subtle sense of humor that we do. I mean, we actually wrote the synopsis in a confusing grammar, as if maybe someone who was distributing it hadn't seen the movie.
Yeah.
And which happened in the 80s, or also the English was a little bit like their second language or something.
Yeah.
No,
I like that. Like with yeah. There's so much funny stories like that. Like also with what is it? The like William Shatner movie, like Impulse or whatever.
Yeah.
What's the other title? Like I Love to Kill or something?
I Love to Kill. Yeah. We celebrate that big time. I mean, that's where we got the Freaky Farley shirt. Shatner wears the striped shirt in that one.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so good.
Because I mean, we grew up watching VHS. I mean, that was I grew up watching it, and then when Farley, Tom, and I did our book series and our occasional podcast, the Shock Marathons podcast, it was all VHS. So I am comfortable with watching that format, and it's very welcoming.
I was like around at like the tail end of VHS, so I wonder if that's like not part of it too. Is like I watched it growing up, but it's like I don't know. I feel kind of the same way about VHS that like a lot of people do about like listening to music like on vinyl or something.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe hasn't quite caught on because it's like you said, it's because it's like the appeal is like how the cheapness of it instead of like, oh, it sounds so good or whatever. But yeah, I love it. I'm interested to see. I'm always impressed by how quick Justin gets those Gold Ninja video things out.
Yeah.
I had the Godfrey Ho one, and it was just insane, like hearing him talk about like how many movies he watched and recording all the commentaries. And it's
they do a good job. Very busy guys.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm probably gonna, after I finish with you, I'm probably gonna upload the Riverbeast for Justin tonight. So so you can check out the file and make sure it's all good.
Yeah, I'm always impressed too how like the like Local Legends one is basically like it feels like it could be like a Mozart Media box set because it has like three of your movies on there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
He loaded it up with stuff. Yeah, why not, right? I mean, we've got content, and might as well put it out there.
Is there gonna be? I have to ask. Is there gonna be any like release this year of like Druids everywhere? Is that gonna?
There's a chance. We'll see.
Yeah. I've heard the talk. I think I was listening to the commentary of Druid Gladiator Clone. I think you're talking about that on there. You're like, yeah, I think people should see this, and I'm like, yes, please. Please put it out.
Well, that was the most just me and Farley movie since our college movies.
Yeah.
Like everybody was busy, and we're like, we're just gonna finish this thing. We're going in the woods, camera, and we're gonna come out with a movie.
Yeah, just everything that you said about it, like with each like sentence, I was just like, I want to see this more. It's like Farley with like a beard out in the shack.
Yeah, he's funny in that.
It sounds so good.
Yeah, It is pretty funny. You got to have a real open mind, but it's pretty funny. You would get what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's what I find about the Druid trilogy is so interesting is that there's like so much like history that's like not even and like lore that's like not even in the movies. Like there's that unreleased film, and then there's also the one between like Cuban Country and Sammy that I don't think ever got made on the
Yeah,
on the
on the Lamb.
on the lamb. Yeah.
Yeah, on the Lamb was just a story, and then there was a short story Farley wrote called Love in the Tunnel, which was about after in Sammy after Elise gets grabbed and pulled into
Hmm.
the tunnel, she ends up living with the Beast for a
Yeah.
while, and it's like a Beauty and the Beast story, and then yeah, we had a few other ones. The original one was called Thomasville, which the Druids were not as big a part, but I kind of really liked the Druids, and I was like, probably more Druids, and then he was like, all right,
Yeah.
we worked with that.
That's what I love about that movie is for me at least. I know everybody like every like review that I read of it like says, oh, this is like the first one or whatever. So they're still kind of figuring things out. But I like love that one. That one's like one of my favorites. I just love how it like starts out with the weird um like just kind of absurd like local politics stuff with like Farley as the mayor and like the only
Yeah,
member of the council and he like sings on the radio and then
yeah.
there's like all the great nature photography and then the druid fight. I'm just like, this has like everything.
In the way that I like to write complete sentences and punctuate, I also like a slower movie sometimes. And
Hmm.
I'll tell you, people don't always agree with me,
Yeah.
but I feel offended when a movie's too fast or talking down to me, thinking I'm going to get bored.
Yeah.
Give me some weirdness to kind of get into, and
Yeah.
like some little touches. That's what I would
Yeah.
prefer. So
That's
we had some of that in there.
yeah, that's what I like. I think like Will Sloan or something, he like said that there's like kind of a Jarmusch or like Kelly Reichardt sort of feel to the pacing. And I agree. That's what I like is it's just like it gets to a point where it's just like the two of you guys hanging out in the woods and there's like
Yeah.
the running joke about the bear and everything. And it's just like, oh my gosh, yeah. I love
Yeah,
it
it's
so
not
much.
hitting you over the head with it. You got to kind of like
Yeah.
give yourself over to the screen a little bit and just
Hmm.
kind of don't do two things at once and just try to figure out what are these guys doing and how serious are they and what the heck is going to happen next. Like all that should be going on in your head, hopefully.
Yeah. No, for sure. I remember that too. That was like this when it played for the spectacle thing. I had had like kind of a crappy day or whatever and I just sat down to watch that movie and I was just like automatically like in such a good mood. I was just like I love
That's
this
good.
so much. It's
I always laugh seeing Kevin McGree reading his lines. He's
yeah.
pushing me and Farley down. We only had us three people there, so no one's looking through the lens. I had to turn the little screen so I could be like, I think we're all in the shot. Action, and then we're all kind of like, and he's got the script on the dirt, and he's trying to
Really?
read it and threatening to us. You shouldn't have come here, Charlie and Farley. I just chuckle every time. And we think about all of our situations we got ourselves in,
Yeah.
being there in the woods in New Hampshire with this guy pushing us into the dirt while he's reading the lines off the ground. And
That's
good life stories, yeah.
no, I love that. It also has one of the best lines in it. Oh my God, it's Kevin McGee at that part.
Kevin McGee and McGee stars. That's
Yeah.
kind of like a comment on movies where they have a aha moment and also an
Yeah.
actual aha moment. And
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah, I told Will when we were being interviewed by him, I was like, we sort of talk so far down to our audience sometimes that we're talking up to them,
Hmm.
in that
Yeah.
B, not even a B movie, in a C movie way where,
Hmm. Yeah.
and what do you got going on this semester for you're doing a big project or something or this year?
Not yeah, I'm in like a lot of studies classes this semester. I
More
kind of
regular
like
study? Hmm.
yeah, I kind of like registered with that in mind, kind of thinking that that's kind of the stuff I gravitate towards, but also it's because like I was like I figured all of this is like going to be online and it's just a little easier, I think, for those classes to carry over in that way. Because that's, yeah. Oh, did it cut out? Did it hang up? Did it hang up?
I got you back. Yeah, yeah, no, I got you back. Yeah, I hear you. With everything being online, you can't really collaborate with people easily right now on films, and
I'm
you
in
kind of
one.
got to study.
Yeah, I'm in like
Study.
one production class. It's an alternative forms one, and it's particularly about the topic is activist filmmaking, which is interesting to me. It's like both of those things like aren't really my where I like gravitate towards with my own work, because it's like most of my stuff is like not that experimental, and it's not particularly like activist or any based or anything. But I was like, this might be a little fun to like a bit of a challenge. But it's like, yeah, I gravitate like towards a lot of the same kind of stuff, I think, that you and
You
Farley.
like Doctor Who, it seems like a lot, right? That's what I
Yeah,
could get from in your movie. Yeah,
yeah, it's
that
like
sort of fun.
yeah, and that's I think, because I was watching a lot of those again when I was when I was like watching a lot of your stuff for the first time, and it's like they kind of have like, for me at least, sort of the same vibe that I'm really drawn to, which is like they know, there's like a low budget and like all the limitations and everything, but they're just like so earnest and like so passionate about like telling a good story, and there's
Yeah,
just like, I mean, with that there's like even more of like an unironic uh there's like no ironic detachment or anything, which is what I really like too. And it's like, yeah, when it's goofy, it's like more funny because of that, because it's like not, Star Trek's a little the same way too. But yeah, I'm like
yeah,
into like those kind of geeky, more of those like kind of geeky things. And it's like, I think there's like so much value in that kind of stuff too, even if it's like, yeah, there's like no meaning to this, I guess, but it's like I just think it's fun, like the one I did earlier this year too.
no, I think it's great. That sense of the fantastic in all those things always tends to draw me in. So
Yeah.
I like character stuff and I like plot, but I also, if there's a hint of some sort of a creature or some sort of some sort of magical thing going on, I am drawn to that. That kind of ups the ante. So if you can have both together, yes, I'm very happy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean that's like always the stuff that like I was drawn to when I like started getting into movies, which is like what drew me to those like sci-fi things, and also the
Mm-hmm.
it's like I didn't know anything that was like going on like plot wise or like parallels to the real world on like Star Trek or anything as a kid. I was just like, I like the monster in this episode. It's like the creature design is really cool. And
That's
yeah,
fantastic. Works on so many levels. I love it.
yeah, same, yeah, and same with like a Riverbeast and stuff too. It's like, I love the creature and everything, but I also love like all of the stuff around it, like with the characters. So I think it does kind of achieve both levels.
Yeah, that's how you try. I mean, Farley could have been run out of town and had things go wrong just for some plain reason.
Yeah.
Something happened, like he got in trouble for some boring real world reason. Like, well, what if he actually got in trouble and embarrassed because of an aquatic beast? It's like, that's more fun.
Yeah, no, and I love all the dialogue about that too. Early on, people just like, he's like disgraced, and everybody's like talking about it really seriously, but it's like just about, yeah, the river beast. And I'm trying to remember like all the like the name that they keep getting. They keep,
Yeah,
but
river. They call him a lake
yeah, Lake
monster.
Monster. Yeah.
Danny O'Grady.
Oh, good stuff. Um, yeah, I think we kind of covered most of the stuff I was gonna ask. I had a couple more questions, if
Okay, go
that's
for it.
okay.
It's okay. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Apologize for going over a little bit. I got
No problem.
sidetracked
It's
a
fine.
couple times. Yeah. I think I was going to ask, how did those like jobs, like the projects with David, how did that impact your work? Like working with Farley, like how were you able to like do both of those things at once? Because I think that's
Yeah,
something we're kind of talking about in this class.
yeah. Definitely helped learning about working in post production what is a finished movie and what does it need to
Mm-hmm.
have to pass quality control and to like get out there in the world. So even if you have a low budget movie, it still has to meet certain standards to be something that could be out there.
Yeah.
Not for YouTube, but if you're going to get distributed somewhere, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I was learning all the, you know, how to make things, you know, how to make the audio good enough to pass muster, how to, you know, get the comps good enough. All the technical things that I was learning on other people's movies was definitely informing, like starting with Freaky Farley, learning the good practices also of just backing up your work like crazy, saving versions of your edit,
Mm-hmm.
using like when you make a master of a movie, at the end of the movie you're supposed to put the textless versions of your shots. So if say we had a big shot of like the river in Manchester and I put the Freaky Farley logo on it, but someone said we want to give you guys $1 million for this movie, but you got to call it like Murder in the Woods.
Mm-hmm.
So they would be able to take that shot that I put at the end of the movie of just the woods, recut it in, put the new title over it, and it
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't look all terrible, you know.
Yeah.
So like I learned how to make all that stuff and how to produce a finished like master tape. And
Mm-hmm.
then the other thing that was affecting me, I think, was fixing so many things on other people's movies made me more careful during filming about not messing up some stuff and also not writing in so many effects into the movie, because even though I worked in effects, it made me respect how long it takes, and it kind of slows the whole process down of getting excited about a movie and finishing it. Because when you're, and also editing shots that were filmed for real and editing shots that have an element that's not finished yet, it's kind of like doesn't feel as good in my heart sometimes
Mm-hmm.
creatively. So I went through the fire of doing all those effects almost in a way now to be like, let's figure out a way to not have to resort to some of that.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard Tarantino's that way too. I don't know if you have read about his work or you like his work, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
unlike Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he didn't even want to like fake a shadow on a wall or some down to that level where it wouldn't be that hard to draw something in later. But it's like, I think it's kind of cool to think that he doesn't like it as much in his heart if they weren't able to get it in the lens properly.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of cool. I'm in both worlds though, because I've worked in it and I do watch a lot of fantasy. He doesn't really make fantasy movies, so if you're making something that's more has lasers or something like, or magic or something, you're gonna have most likely some effects.
The lightning and Freaky Farley.
Lightning and Druid Gladiator,
Druid
and
Gladiators. Yeah.
yeah, and the poofs when the druids, more. If we didn't have too many effects in the other ones, but yeah, I think learning, but the main thing you learn working in post is just having everything in order, trying to be organized, backing stuff up, taking your time to get it right, and then keeping your masters in order, and getting all your artwork right. Because even now, we're putting out stuff on Prime. There's a big checklist of things you need to submit,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I have to, for all the movies, I had to redo all the box art, and I have to go back to the original negative sometimes of the production stills we took. And at the time, it came out on DVD. It's like, yay, it's done, it's out.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's a whole other thing where, okay, I need to submit like a mobile-friendly icon for Freaky Friday. I had to submit one that was 1920 by 1080. I just submit a 1920 by 1080 background with no text, which comes up when you click on a movie on Prime, like the banner at the top,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
is a separate, all that stuff I have to do. So all that organization and taking time to like take a few stills on the day and have everything in order that you learn in post-production can affect you for the rest of your career.
Yeah. I think one of the last things I was wondering about, it's like what most people would think maybe is a boring question, but I am interested in, and it ties directly into the reading, is do you think you could maybe talk about like budgeting those Moturn films, and maybe how that's, because from what I gather, it's like I feel like you kind of have a process in, but I imagine that's like changed, from like the Druid movies to like the films on 16 millimeter to like
Yeah.
Riverbeast on. And I was just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. So, like with Riverbeast, I think the main things that we had to budget for, if we're shooting on a long day, everybody has to get lunch.
Mm-hmm.
If people are driving, they have to get gas money. And, equipment wise, we had to buy a new, Farley bought a new camera for Riverbeast, but we do not rent any equipment for any of the movies. We kind of just work with what we have. Either it's something Farley has from his music career with microphones, or I had like a microphone. With the Druid movies, it was my video camera, which I bought, and then just made as many movies as I could with it.
Mm-hmm.
So the budgeting process is pretty simple. There's not, I wouldn't even say that we have a big spreadsheet or something like an official budget like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly, how many days are we going to film, and the food and the gas. There might only be $100 to $200 in like props or specific things we need to buy for that movie.
Uh-huh.
Could be if there's a shirt that someone needs that's part of the plot, that's in there, something like that. Freaky Friday, we had to buy like 1 or 2 knives, some fake blood. It's like $100. The biggest of all of our production so far was the Riverbeast himself.
Mm-hmm.
There's just, creating a creature like that is going to cost some money. So we did budget him. My friend Greg, who made the Riverbeast for us, kind of had to, can you do it for like $1,000? It was that kind of a thing. So
Yeah.
Farley and I were like, okay, well, we'll both chip in this amount of money, and it's just buying the latex, buying the wetsuit, buying the flippers, all that stuff adds up pretty quickly. So yeah, I don't have a wonderful answer for you there, because we are making them sort of as passion projects, and
Yeah.
we don't have any producers or companies that we report to, because Farley and I own all the copyrights to it. It's 50-50. It's really just thinking about, okay, how many days are we going to shoot, and what is the bare minimum like raw materials we need. But on some of the days, like any other student filmmakers you might know, or for yourself or something, if you're filming a scene with somebody and you go to their house, like we do with Kevin McGee, they don't have to spend money on gas, and they don't have to spend money on food, because you're not there to go like into a mealtime. So those days, it's not so much budgeting for a movie as it is like, hey, do you want to hang out with us for 3 hours at your house? And they are okay with that, as long as we don't take up too much of their time, or he'll even let us break stuff, but we haven't really so far.
No, I think that's a great answer. I think that kind of what you were speaking to there about like, more so just kind of, do people want to hang out with us for a few hours? I think that's when you can, also why it's good to have kind of a group of people locked down, because that's when you can lead to some of those like kind of horror stories, like with Manch Vegas that I heard about, where like whole characters had to be cut because everybody's like, oh, I'm sick, or all the
hives.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we were asking this. We saw a girl who was playing like a guitar on the sidewalk the night before we had to film other scenes, and we were trying to convince her to be in the movie, and that didn't work out right. Yeah, desperate times. But the advice that you get out of that is just like never stop, because you can't let anything hang you up. You just got to keep going. There's, even if in your mind you pictured it as a different way, there's going to be something that someone will enjoy in there. And if it's just one part of the movie that's getting changed or something, you still got a lot of other positives going on, and you can't get hung up on one thing, because that's when you never make a real movie, if you get too hung up on one thing. It's like forest for the trees filmmaking. Not every shot is the fanciest, and not everything is perfect, but do you have heart on the whole, and do you have a finished project?
Yeah. That's what I love so much, I mean, about all of them, but about especially Manch Vegas, is that I feel like that heart really still comes through despite all of that stuff. It's like, I didn't even notice that when I was watching it. I think I listened to you guys talking about it like afterwards and hearing like about how the characters had to be cut and how it's like, oh, it's, you know, there was supposed to be like more of this in the plot or whatever, like this stuff at the digging site.
Yeah, it happens. You know, it kind of you build experience, you build character, and going through those things, and you just gotta kind of like see the positive. And when you start out, of course, you shoot for the moon because you're gonna have to whittle it down probably inevitably on a day-to-day basis. You're not gonna have enough time for something. The weather's gonna kick up, so just try to be flexible.
Yeah, for sure.
But especially if you're not paying everybody. I mean, Kubrick didn't have to be flexible, but if no one's getting paid and you're making it for fun, you got to kind of like rewire your brain and go back to that when stuff's going crazy or it's a little bit hard. Just try to remember that you're doing it for fun, and you don't get to make that many movies in your life, so make the most of each one. A day making a movie is equal to like 40 days of regular life. That's stuff like that. I don't know. Sometimes I say 10 days, but now I'll say 40. Because if at the end of a day of filming with somebody, you feel like you've known them for like a month or longer. And you're as tired as if you did like a whole month of stuff. And just the knowledge that you're capturing it on film forever and you're working towards something, it makes life more potent.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. I love the thing as well. It's like, I think the mentality that kind of comes through with your guys' films is like, you could be like doing, and with the music too, it's like you could be doing, why like just sit around and do nothing when you like could get up and like start making a movie, or even if you don't make a movie, like, start like brainstorming some of those ideas. It's like,
yeah, a lot of it is just getting going is some people's hanging up point or thinking it's not going to be perfect or it's not going to be fancy enough.
Yeah,
you kind of just got to start, and that's why it's good to have some friends to work with. Push each other.
For sure. Well, I think that's about all I have.
Awesome.
I didn't think it was going to go this long, so
that's okay.
What?
That's okay. It was super fun. It did fly by, actually.
I know. Yeah, that's the thing. Because I thought we were just gonna like, when we talked about like some of those other things, I was like, oh, this is just gonna be a little bit, and then I can get back to like my questions. Then I was like, oh crap, it's like over an hour. I don't want to.
Yeah, that's good. Those are the best interviews when you don't have to. You're not watching the clock, and you're not like, is it over yet? And I hate when I listen to a commentary and I feel like the director or actors or producer are kind of like, you're like pulling the words out of them, or they're not like, you don't have any fun stories or some natural rapport developing here.
No, those like just long patches of
long pause
on the commentary track. That's what I like them, but that's the kind of problem with some of those 36 cinema ones is when they don't have people actually who have worked on the film, there can be those kind of gaps. But that's what was so good about Man from Hong Kong. The only time there was a gap, he said like, okay, I want you guys to watch this action scene, so I'm not going to say anything. And it's like, yeah, that's perfect.
That's the way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it should be. But yeah, I think I'll let you go now though, but thank you so much for your time. And this was like so much fun and also just beneficial to my project. But it was really great talking to you as well. I love your films, as you probably have gathered.
Well, thanks for the support. And if you need anything else, don't hesitate to ask. Okay, I'm easy. For sure. Whatever you need. All right. Peace.
See ya.
Thank you. Bye.